Hello, welcome to 10 Minute Lean In. Have you ever had one of those evenings that you're just sleepless? You toss and turn and you just can't fall asleep. So, in frustration, you decide to get up and to read a book to help you fall asleep. Well, we read about a similar story about a king that we find in the book of Esther that had one of those kind of nights. So he called one of his attendants to bring him the book of history. I mean, what can better make us fall asleep than a history book? To read about the history of his reign. And as the attendant was reading the stories of his reign to the king, they came upon the story about a man named Mordecai who several years back had exposed a plot from two of the king's personal guards who had came up with a plan to assassinate him. And after reading this, the king asked his attendant, what recognition did we ever give to Mordecai for exposing this plan and saving my life? And he came to learn that nothing had ever really been done to truly honor Mordecai for saving the king's life. So the king decided to have a day to honor and recognize Mordecai, and they brought him into the king's palace, and they dressed him up in the king's own royal clothes, and they put him on a white horse, and they paraded him through the center of the city with many people watching, and the officials were walking before him shouting, "This is what the king does for someone he wishes to honor." And this is really a big deal. It's kind of like one of our, the ticker tape parades that we have when a team wins a championship, or when the military comes home from war and people line up and down the street to cheer them and to honor them. I mean, this kind of stuff, when you really think about it, can kind of puff you up and go to your head, right? But listen to what Mordecai did after he was honored in the parade that we read about in Esther 6:12, and here it is. After that, Mordecai returned to the palace gate. Before we dive into the heart of the matter of what I'm trying to get to, it's kind of important to understand why he was sitting at the palace gate. Most historians agree that Mordecai was more than likely a judge, and back in those days, when you served as a judge, they would station themselves at the king's gate outside of his palace, and that people who needed a judge would know where to go and find them. So, back to what I read to you earlier, that says, then Mordecai returned to the king's gate. Though he was paraded through the town and highly exalted and honored, he just went back and sat down where he had always sat. He just went back to work. Mordecai was not all puffed up with his honors, as honor is well given to those who do not think themselves higher than they should. So what about you? Has God's providence been smiling on you lately, where you're kind of becoming a big deal in the eyes of your circle? Have you come to a place of popularity and maybe prosperity? And if so, my question to you is are you still where you were before all the awards and the accolades came to you? Or do you feel that you should be treated differently, treated with special care, and not necessarily bothered with everyday problems anymore? Mordecai, in our modern day language, after the parade, would probably read, just drop me back off at the office. And there is something really compelling about this humble faithfulness. Doing what we do, day in and day out, not in the hope of praise, because it is the right thing to do. It may not seem like much at the time, but I'm telling you, it carries a lot of significance. Mordecai did what was right in exposing the plans of the guys who wanted to kill the king because because it was the right thing to do, not because he wanted to be recognized or exalted. And in conclusion today, Deuteronomy 6:18 says, "Do what is right and good in the Lord's sight, so all will go well with you." For us today as Christians, this serves as a reminder that our actions are a reminder that our actions are being seen by God. And it challenged us to live with integrity and making choices that reflect God's characters and values. And we live in a world where standards of right and wrong are constantly shifting. This verse calls us to stand our ground in sense of morality to God's word. And by choosing to live in a way that aligns with God's commands, we position ourselves to experience his favor and blessings, because that is where it really matters. To be right in the eyes of God rather than to be right in the eyes of man. Thanks so much for watching, and be blessed.